Gordon up in Champaign, Illinois, hit me and said, I got two questions. First off, what's the better product, the college football playoff or March Madness? And secondly, could we see a lack of upsets in the NCAA tournament because of portal and NIL bleed into football? Just a really good two-parter. Got the gears spinning earlier today. All right, first things first. There's no doubt in my mind, not a moment's hesitation, March Madness is a way better product than the college football playoff, just if we're judging postseason products. I didn't say the sport of basketball I prefer over the sport of football or anything like that. The NCAA tournament in college basketball as a standalone product is unmatched. The college football playoff doesn't come close to touching March Madness. Now, here's the follow-up to that. I hope I never say anything other than that. Because if the college football playoff ever becomes anything that remotely compares to March Madness in the NCAA tournament in college basketball, that means college football's regular season has gone up in smoke in terms of value. And so I never want to live in a world where the college football playoff even comes close to comparing to the NCAA tournament in basketball. When I mention the two sports, what comes to mind? Or I guess before I answer the second question, I should give you a little bit of the logic there. This, again, comes down to your worldview. Like, what do you enjoy? What do you value? There are a lot of folks out there, there are a lot of college football fans out there who value the playoff first and foremost. A lot of you probably feel that way. I don't happen to feel that way. I didn't grow up that way. I don't feel that way now. I think the regular season is the best part of our sport. The postseason is a thing we do after the best part of our sport. I don't look at pro sports that way. I don't look at the NFL that way. The NFL playoffs and then the Super Bowl, like those are the pinnacle of the NFL. College basketball. I largely don't watch college basketball during the regular season, but then when the NCAA tournament starts, I'm glued to it. So my view on college football is that it's unique unto any sport in the world and unique unto any sport in the American sporting scene. But what do you think about when I mention the sports? College basketball, college football. And I snap my finger. What's the first thing that comes to mind? I'll tell you, for me, what comes to mind with college basketball is the first weekend of the NCAA tournament. What comes to mind when I think of college football is a Saturday in the fall. Here's the key difference there. The first weekend of the NCAA tournament lasts 96 hours. Saturdays in the fall go on for 13 weeks. We get like 4 months of it. So I want to extend whatever the pinnacle of my sport is as long as possible. So that's why I always have preferred the construct of college football over college basketball. But the trade-off there is that means the postseason product of college basketball is going to be far and away superior to college football. But the second part, do me a favor again, Bradley, throw that question up again. The second question here, that's what really got the gears turning. He said, could we see lack of upsets in March Madness because of portal and NIL bleed into football? And it already has, is the answer. It already has. Jeff Goodman had a tweet the other day. This was, I believe, this was Saturday morning. Is that what we said? I think it was Saturday morning. Jeff Goodman does a way better job covering college basketball than I even do at watching college basketball. But he said favorites went 16-0 yesterday. So this is Saturday. He's talking about Friday. Favorites went 16-0 straight up yesterday. This year's first round had 13 of 32 games decided by 20-plus points. High Point was the only true mid-major still alive, and its NIL is probably the most of any team in a one-bid league. I hate to admit it, but due to NIL and the portal, Cinderellas may be dead. Which is not a good thing, man, because that's kind of what college basketball is built on. Now, college football, we've talked about this theme for a long time. The concept of a Cinderella has been dead and buried in college football. And by that, I mean the concept of a G5 team ever even being able to sniff a national championship. Those days probably never existed, but if they did exist, they are long gone. The Cinderella story in college football is Indiana. That's the Cinderella story. And really, what makes that possible is a whole lot of money comes in, and then it gets put in the hands of people who know how to spend it, but they also know how to evaluate and develop, so they know to get the right talent and then develop it and put it in the right place once they have the talent. But there are no have-nots that are making runs in college football. But relatively speaking, the point stands. Because what he's saying there is in college basketball, once upon a time, you could out-evaluate other programs, other major programs, and then you could get guys on campus and you could afford to develop them for a couple of years. And then you may get this veteran-laden group at a mid-major that makes a run in the NCAA tournament. Also, basketball is just a different sport functionally than football. And so that stuff could happen. Well, what he's saying is nowadays, if you do that, if Winthrop starts to get a freshman or a freshman turning into a sophomore that starts to really blossom, Michigan State just goes and gets him. And it's not that that never happened in the past, but now it happens all over the place to where you just kind of become a lab for the premier programs in the big conferences. And as a result, you don't really see the results in the first couple of rounds of the tournament that you used to. Well, in college football, that's happened as well. Quick 5-second timeout. Check and make sure you're subscribed to the channel. It keeps it free. We love you. All right, back to the show. That's why I always talk about the concept of a G5 playoff on this show. It's not because I want to rip opportunity away from G5 teams. Quite the opposite. I wish I could re-engineer the sport where the financial structure made it such that the G5 didn't have to long for participation in the Power 4 conferences playoff tournament because they need to be subsidized financially. I wish that didn't exist as a problem. Because if it didn't exist as a problem, then we wouldn't have to pretend 138 or whatever teams are playing the same level of sport, and we could have tiers of playoff that loosely reflected teams of comparable resources competing against each other. As it stands right now, I'm supposed to believe LSU and UL Monroe are playing the same sport, and they're not. But we have to pretend that they are. So in college football, once upon a time, you had the Boise States of the world. And Chris Peterson at Boise State could go and he could find some players that had no offer from USC or Texas, and he could get them on campus, and you'd never even heard of some of them, and he would develop them, and then they become a really, really culture-rich, veteran, senior-laden team that can theoretically make a run, pull upsets. They didn't have an expanded playoff back then, but if they did, Boise would be one of those teams. Central Florida had a couple of teams like that. That possibility is long gone. That's not happening anymore. The way it works now is those guys, as freshmen and eventually sophomores, maybe a junior at those schools, become what they were ultimately going to become, and then they're just at Texas the next year. Not just the players, the coaches too. We had 2 G5 teams make the playoff this past year, Tulane and JMU. You know what they had in common? Their head coaches had to go back and forth to coach in the playoff because they had already taken other jobs. So basically, whether you call them a mid-major or you call them a G5, what that's become is just a laboratory. It's just like an experimental lab for LSU to no longer need to roll the dice on offering a kid out of Thibodeau a scholarship who's a 3-star. You just go play for UL Lafayette. And then if he ends up becoming anything, we'll just go get him a couple of years later. And what that does is it completely strips the possibility of any of those vintage Boise-esque teams existing in major college football today. Depending on how you view the sport of basketball or football will determine whether you think that's a good or bad thing. Because when Jeff made that point about college basketball, some folks like me looked at it and said, that sucks, man, because I really miss the days where I could tune in and I could see a double-digit underdog pull an upset, a 13 over a 4 on Thursday, and then 48 hours later on Saturday, they pull another upset. Man, that 13 sees in the Sweet 16. That's awesome. And it's not that that couldn't happen, but the percentage chances of it are greatly reduced. But then other people look at it and say, this is not a bad thing at all. We want to see the best teams advancing in the tournament. That's great. That's all well and good. But you see, you've cooked yourself. If you've got a playoff that's the size of college basketball, and then you want to make the argument that, well, we also want to load the tournament up on the back end with all the premier brands. Well, that kind of doesn't compute. Like, to me, you kind of need one or the other. You kind of need a very, very meaningful regular season where they're going to battle it out, and then there are a finite amount of postseason spots, or you need baked into your expanded postseason the real shot of Cinderella runs. This is one of many reasons I'm against postseason expansion in college football. But the other thing is, it is funny. While we got our own issues over on the college football side of the fence with playoff expansion, and you're either for it or you're against it, even the people who are for playoff expansion in college football have to be listening to college basketball, shaking their head in disbelief that these people are talking about expanding that tournament even further. Hey, look, newsflash, you may be a fan sitting in Chattanooga, Tennessee, who really does want expansion because you want to see more ball. You and I may fundamentally disagree on the concept of scarcity and how it relates to the size that a playoff should be, but whatever. We've disagreed before, we'll disagree again, but I got a news flash for you. Those people don't want expansion for the same reason you want expansion. It's no coincidence that they're all of a sudden shouting about expansion now that the construct of the sports, relatively speaking, have worked themselves into such a manner where it's all but impossible that the little guy can make a run. You expand the NCAA tournament, it's just more Big Ten and SEC teams at the table, or ACC teams, or whatever. And that's why, shockingly, they're all on board with it. Just like in college football, like, you may think 24 teams is great because your personal college football worldview is that that would be a better thing. You and I disagree on that, but reasonable minds can disagree on that. They don't want expansion for the same reasons you do. So, yeah, I think there's a lot of connective tissue there. That was a really good question.